everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Balthazar.
And welcome to this week's weekly recap, which has probably the biggest recruiting set of news that we've had probably in the history of the show, at least in terms of quantity.
Yeah, I think in quantity, yes. And in terms of quality, even, it's still pretty high up there. It's, I think, maybe going to be impossible to beat Avery Johnson singularly in terms of just pure impact. But the combined quality of everything from this week is very, very high.
Yeah. But before we get into that, I would like to thank the sponsor of this episode, Greg Arthur. If you want to help support the show, please be sure to go to the supporters and sponsors link in the podcast description. Donate as little as $1 a month. It really, really helps the show. But let's start off with the football recruiting news, starting with the two transfers, including probably the big one that I think you and I joked about it whenever whenever this guy decommitted from K-State the first time, that you and I jokingly said, yeah, we'll just get him in the transfer portal when he's out in a year. I'm not sure how serious you and I were about that. And yet, lo and behold, here we are. Dylan Edwards returns home to play with his childhood friend, Avery Johnson, at K-State after a solid true freshman campaign at the disaster class that has quickly become the Colorado Buffaloes, at least in terms of outward media presence.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting couple of weeks for Colorado. Granted, they've always been interesting. And I've always been curious how they're going to do over the long haul. I figured they might take a step this year, but I'm starting to kind of maybe wonder if that's going to be the case. But regardless, we got one of their most talented players, the portal.
Yeah. I mean, he had over 500 all-purpose yards as a true freshman, and a lot of that came in, early because the entire offense became the Shedeur Sanders show towards the back end of the year, which, funnily enough, is when they stopped winning games. I wonder if those two things are correlated. But, Dylan Edwards coming to K-State is... I don't think I can really exaggerate how big this is for K-State. And I know it's like positional value, yada yada, running back, something. But you have you probably have the best 1-2 punch in terms of backs, maybe almost certainly in the Big 12, but maybe even in the country.
I don't think that's a super hyperbolic thing to say. Oklahoma State would have had an argument, I think, if they had gotten Davon Booth from Utah State. They got another transfer, but I don't remember who it was. KU's got a good running back room, but in terms of pure talent, at the very top of the room, I don't think there's many, if any, in the conference that are going to beat DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards. Particularly, I'm impressive for K-State is it's two Kansas kids as well that are leading the flagship football program in Kansas in the backfield, along with a Kansas quarterback. So a lot of sunflower presence in the backfield this upcoming season. We already were going to see that, but now even more. And Dylan Edwards, of course, there's an argument with positional value in running back. Running back is a lot more valuable in college than it is in the NFL. NFL, we've seen that really just doesn't matter all that much. But Dylan Edwards is also a lot more than just a traditional running back. He had 76 carries this past year, but he also caught the ball 36 times. I imagine both those numbers are going to go up, at particularly receptions. He is too good to keep off the field. But DJ Giddens is also too good to keep off the field. So that means we're going to have to find ways to use both of them at the same time. So that means probably a lot of split back and a lot of Dylan Edwards in the slot, or maybe even splitting out wide on occasion. But more likely than not, most of his time is going to be in the slot or taking jet sweeps. Not so much as a gadget player, but as RB1B, I think is maybe the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think if you were to be really, really lazy, you could just designate Dylan Edwards as the third down back. However, that does not account for the fact that DJ Giddens is also an exceptional receiving back because his hands are freaking massive. I really, it's sort of the perfect complement to DJ Giddens as a 1A, 1B scenario. Because DJ Giddens, yes, he has moves. Yes, he's more than a power back. But by virtue of him, like, just how, like, big he is as a human being, he's going to be very good at running in between the tackles. And I don't think he has... The only real knock on DJ Giddens is he doesn't have the best long speed. You know who does?
Dylan Edwards.
Dylan Edwards probably steps in and is one of the fastest people on the team.
Yeah, and he's going to immediately be one of the fastest players in the conference because he was already one of the fastest guys in the conference. So he's not leaving the conference. This is an intra-conference transfer, which is going to be difficult to get used to again. But yeah, this is intra-conference. We're going to be playing in Boulder in October. So Dylan Edwards is going to have a revenge game of sorts. I think October 12th, I think. But it's a massive pickup, and it's kind of a reversal in roles from what DJ was to Deuce in 2022. Because now, instead of having the smaller back with great speed be number one, you're having him be number two behind DJ, who you can maybe more basically refer to him as a power back, but we've always rung the bell that he's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And he showed that on multiple occasions. Really, really great receiver. Surprisingly good receiver, even. But Dylan Edwards, I definitely understand people who are apprehensive about it, but my mental math on this, the way I justify this to myself, is would Kleiman take a guy that's going to jeopardize the locker room after how the first recruitment went down? Answer's probably not. And number two, does he give us a better chance at winning the Big 12? And I think he absolutely does.
Yeah.
Because he was excellent as a freshman last year. He really burst onto the scene in that first TCU game. The year where I think he had 4 touchdowns in that game.
Yeah.
But he was fantastic as a freshman, and he's only going to get better. So,
yeah, in an offense that isn't just going to focus on one person, because I think that the offense, the way that it's probably going to be schemed up between Connor Riley and Matt Wells, is it's going to be an offense that focuses on not necessarily just Avery playing point guard, but a pretty even distribution of just getting the ball to the playmakers. And we have a pretty underrated, I would say, collection of playmakers with people like Jace Brown. Apparently Keegan Johnson's coming along after an injury-addled last season. You have people like Jaden Jackson, who, for all his faults, is still a really solid Big 12 receiver. Dylan Edwards, DJ Giddens, and that's not even to mention people like Will Ancio, Andrew Metzger, and your favorite player, Garrett Oakley.
yeah, there's a very healthy stable of weapons on this K-State team. And Dylan Edwards only adds to the offense. And I don't think he'll take away from the younger guys either. I still think there will be opportunities for a guy like Joe Jackson to get on the field, especially if we're as talented as we think we are. They'll have plenty of time in garbage time to get some garbage time touchdowns in. But no, Dylan's a huge addition to the offense.
Yeah. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball is a brand new linebacker commit from the University of New Mexico, the Lobos, and that is Alec Marenko, who K-State ended up beating. This was a pretty significant recruiting win coming out of the portal, with K-State beating Auburn and Arizona for the New Mexico transfer. Last year, he did have 66 tackles, 3 passes defensed, half a sack, and a forced fumble. I don't think that really tells the entire story with Alec, because despite his size at 6'3", 230, he moves pretty fluidly for that size. I think that he can slot in to the middle linebacker, will linebacker role. I I've heard some people, and I've had discussions with some people, that they want to kick Austin Moore inside to middle linebacker and have Alec Marenko play Will. I would not lose my mind if that happened, but I think that Alec Marenko, if he is a legit 230, even with how fluid he moves, that's a really, really solid size for a Mike linebacker. It all just comes down to, who do you really want being the Marcus Calhoun captain of the defense. But yeah, Alec Marenko was a legit pickup, and that's really it, because for reasons that I'm not sure has been publicly released, so I'm not going to say, the linebacker room has become a bit of a need for K-State. And this really helps just put a Band-Aid over it, because now the linebacking room is Des Purnell and probably Rex Van Wy at Sam, Alec Marenko and Austin Romaine at Mike, and then Austin Moore and Asa Newsome at Will.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good linebacker room right there. And yeah, linebacker had become a need, and we had Marenko on a visit, and we had Herring from Tennessee on a visit as well. So we had our pick, because Herring hasn't committed anywhere yet, and we picked Marenko. And I think we probably got the better of the two. The only disadvantage is how much time he has, because Marenko, he only has 1 year of eligibility left. He's a grad transfer, and Herring, I think, had 2 years. But in this era of college football, you take what you can get now. Marenko, we're going to get a season out of him, and that's what we need. We just need a guy to step in for this season, and he, I think, will be a starter. And from what I've seen from him, he's really, really good. I think he'll be a quality Big 12 starter for us.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of just what was needed for K-State, was a quality starter at middle linebacker after the injury to Daniel Green last year, and having to force people like Bo Palmer and Austin Romaine into positions. And I'm not going to say that Bo Palmer or Austin Romaine were bad. Neither of them were. But they just had moments where you could tell that the playing time, they needed more time to marinate at least to game action.
Yeah, particularly Romaine. For being a true freshman, while he had some very frustrating moments, he was really good. For being a true freshman and a relatively under-the-radar true freshman, I don't think he could have done much more than he did, because he was really put in a difficult spot. And Bo Palmer, he's older, but he was a walk-on, and even he had a really great game against KU. He was the defensive MVP, I think, we had for that game.
Yeah,
he was fantastic. But regardless, those are two guys that are going to be at their best when they're playing something like 15 to 20 snaps a game, and Marenko is getting starter snaps. And having Marenko be the starter, that's going to take some pressure off of those guys and give them more time to focus on becoming better players before having to immediately contribute right now. And so Marenko adds a lot to this team beyond just on the field experience, but he does take some pressure off of our younger guys.
Yeah. And now the last football commit comes from a high school player, and that is Weston Polk out of Coppell, Texas. He ends up committing. He's a 3-star on 24/7, and he ends up picking K-State out of pretty significant list of schools, including TCU, Iowa State, Houston, Oregon State. So he ends up picking K-State despite a later push from TCU that was creating some degree of questions. But whenever I see Weston Polk, I see a lot of potential, and a lot of it is sort of projection with a 6'1", 215 linebacker. I think he probably slots in as a more stout, run-stopping middle linebacker as it stands right now, which is strange because he's labeled as a safety on some recruiting sites. But a lot of what with Weston Polk is saying, hey, he's going to be really athletic. And we have a type at linebacker, it seems. And that's picking guys that we think can grow into a certain frame, who are hyper athletic and can be a middle linebacker. And to me, that's sort of what Weston Polk brings. If I were to come up with a recent K-State comp, I would honestly say Jake Stonebreaker would be a really good comparison coming out of high school. He's now just a true freshman at K-State, but a lot of their film looks very similar to one another.
Yeah, I like Weston Polk. I agree. I think that he'll slot as more of a run stopper. His coverage is solid, but yeah, he's a fluid mover. Needs to build a lot of strength, but his instincts are there, and the athleticism is definitely there. He reports, I think, a 4.55, so I'm going to assume he runs a 4.65, which is still really good for a linebacker, particularly in high school. And he's still a junior at this point, so we still have summer camps and his senior season before we see more of how he develops. But yeah, this is a really good pickup. It's a little under the radar because he hadn't been rated by most recruiting sites. He's an 88, 3-star on 24/7. So on the higher end of being a 3-star, closing in on a 4-star. I don't think he'll earn a fourth star unless he really just has an incredible senior year and really takes a big step. But he's somebody that you stash. Hope he sticks around, and then by the time he's a junior, he could be a very quality contributor.
Yeah. It sounds like a short explanation for Weston Polk, and it's not to undersell what he does or who he is as a commit. It's just that whenever you're getting high school guys that have his sort of profile, you're doing a lot of projection. And, sometimes those players work out, sometimes they don't. I have a good feeling about Weston Polk, but I've always had a good feeling about every single K-State commit because I have faith in the staff, and also it keeps me sane.
This is the type of guy that if we had gotten him in the latter years of Bill Snyder's second tenure, we would have been pretty ecstatic about it, I think. But we've kind of gotten used to winning Power 5 battles, which back when we first started the show, that was far from a sure thing. Because, I had grown up in a recruiting era for K-State where you really couldn't ever count on K-State to beat a Power 5 opponent. So it was this is with that perspective, this is a good commit. I think this is exactly what K-State wants. I think you put it well. K-State definitely has a type, a linebacker. Weston Polk fits that.
Yeah. But now we can move on to the basketball transfer portal news, and starting with the commit of someone who we've been asking for, well, not we, but the fan base has been asking for quite some time, and that is a knockdown three-point shooter. And that is Brendan Housen, the transfer from Villanova. So going one Wildcat to another, he goes by several nicknames, but my personal favorite is the Amarillo Assassin. He was called a gym rat by the official K-State basketball account, which...
I'm glad they're leaning into
it. But yeah, the first thing that you hear or see about him is probably the videos of just him knocking down 3 after 3 after 3 in practice. Which, hey, if that's your skill set, please.
Yeah. I really like Housen because he has a very specific role. The closest we've had to that in recent years is probably Ish. But even then, Ish did more than that. But Brendan Housen is the true definition of 3-and-D. He's going to play really good defense and shoot threes. He's taken 23 2-point shots in 2 years at Villanova. This past season, he only took 16 2-point shots out of 176 field goal attempts. And he's shooting pretty close to 40% from 3 on his career, 38% this past season, 85% free throw shooter as well. There's not a lot to say about Brendan Housen because what we saw from him and what we're hoping to get from him is very, very obvious. And we want a guy that shoots threes at a high clip and plays high effort, good defense, and can give us like 15 to 20 minutes a game.
Yep.
That's Brendan Hausen, and that's what we're going to get with Brendan Hausen.
Which is, yeah, we take those.
Yeah.
But before we get into the bad news, we have one more commit, and that is the transfer from Arizona in Bay Fall, which is someone we chased out of high school. He was rated as a 4-star transfer after being a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. A 6'11", 200-pound guy. He didn't do much at Arkansas, so again, whenever you get these guys, sometimes you're doing a lot of projection. However, he is 6'11" and a freak athlete.
Yeah, this is a pretty similar pickup to that of Jarrell Colbert when the staff first got here. We're taking a flyer on a hyper athlete. And in this case, this was a guy that K-State wanted badly out of high school. So the staff was already very familiar with Bay Fall. So this is a guy we would have taken last year if we had been able to. And I think we were among the finalists in his recruitment. And his recruitment went very quickly once he went in the portal. He ended up at K-State and didn't visit anywhere else, I think. But yeah, he didn't play a lot last year. But this is somebody that I'm completely fine with us taking because he's someone the staff already liked in terms of talent. And Arkansas is a bit of a mess this year anyways, so it's hard to draw too much from this season. But yeah, I have, at this point, no immediate expectations for what Bay Fall is going to do next year, but he's somebody that I'm happy to take.
Yeah. The unfortunate bad news comes in the form of 2 transfer portal entries, that being Day-Day Ames, which really, really hurts, and then Arthur Kaluma entering the transfer portal and still putting his name in the NBA draft. There's a outside, and by outside, I mean, if you're in your house, it's probably in Washington right now, shot of Arthur Kaluma coming back to K-State. I've been operating under the assumption that Arthur Kaluma was going to be gone as soon as this offseason starts, so that's house money to me. Day-Day is where it sucks, and it hurts a lot.
Yeah, I'd love to have Kaluma back, but yeah, I always was kind of under the impression this was going to be a 1-year deal with Kaluma. I didn't really expect him to be back anyways, particularly because this NBA draft class this year is supposed to be really weak. So this is going to be a really good opportunity for him to maybe sneak into the draft when, in a stronger class, he might have to go undrafted. Day-Day does hurt, though. I was really disappointed to lose Day-Day Ames because he really came on at the end of the season, was really, really good down the stretch, was so high potential as well. So somebody's going to get a really good basketball player in Day-Day Ames. I guess there's never say never that he could return. We've seen that happen this week, even with the football team.
Sure.
With Malcolm Alcorn Crowder recommitting to K-State after entering the portal after committing as a JUCO guy. So I can't say that he's gone forever, but it's still pretty disappointing to see him leave after just a season. If you'd asked me at the end of the year if one guy was remaining from our high school recruiting class this past season, if it would be Buddy Rich, I would have been pretty surprised. But no, Buddy Rich is seemingly the one to remain. The portal's closed, so don't think he can leave at this point. So, yeah, but losing Day-Day really stinks. There's no really good way to spin that.
Yeah. The only slight upside is if you are optimistic, you start thinking that he left for a reason, presumably playing time, which, if you're willing to play the dominoes game, would make you think that we got some big silent commit.
Which would be really nice.
That'd be cool. I mean, I would accept it. I have no insider information on this subject, but it'd be cool.
It would be cool. It'd be really great, and I hope that if there is a silent commit, I'd really like them to announce sooner rather than later, because I'm still very sad about Day-Day entering the portal, because I really liked Day-Day a lot. But, I don't know, somebody's going to get a really, really good player day to day. And that's just kind of how college basketball is. It's tough to get emotionally attached to any player because at any given time they could just be gone. The exception is David Gasson, though. He's back.
Dave!
Which after some ups and downs throughout his K-State career, he's really kind of cemented himself as a very consistent, high-effort glue guy, who I have come to really appreciate. And we have certainly dunked on him several times on this show, but we've really come to appreciate David Gasson. He's now in year 3 with K-State basketball, so he's the longest tenured cat on the roster right now, I believe.
Wow. Yeah, we've taken our shots at Dave, but just know that this is just me personally, but in the time of my K-State fandom, Dave is probably my second favorite player. No one is beating Marquise Noel anytime soon. But Dave is... There's something beautiful about how Dave plays basketball. In that it's not always pretty, but damn it, you can always tell that he is trying his best.
Yeah. Sometimes he'll do something that just absolutely shocks you with how athletic it is, and then there's times where he'll do something that makes me think that I could maybe get playing time. And that's the beauty of it, is he always brings himself back down, but he's always due for a great moment every now and then. And he's obviously a great locker room presence as well. It's clear the staff really likes him, and I think maybe most importantly is he's kind of a rare guy that is very, very comfortable with his role on the team. He knows he's either going to like start or be like 6th or 7th man, but either way he's fine with it, and that makes me very happy with Dave, because he knows no matter what, he's going to get his, and he's going to have plenty of opportunities on the floor.
Yeah. Maybe one day, talking more about like more general college basketball, we could talk about, maybe in a summer off-season episode, we could talk about, what we think of the transfer portal more generally. Because I have several thoughts, and I feel like you and I as law students may have unique perspectives on it. I'm talking about the tweet I made about commitments as contracts, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the Batcats. And before we talk about the Batcats, actually, just a brief shout out to those K-State players who got drafted. Ben Sinnott in the 2nd round to Washington, Cooper Beebe in the 3rd round to the Dallas Cowboys, and then Katori Levison in the 7th round to the Rams. Congratulations to all of them. Sinnott and Cooper are both in excellent positions to elevate themselves and put like a K-State brand name out there. KT has a good chance of being a swing offensive lineman. Yeah,
I think that's really... I think they all ended up in pretty good spots. KT, I think he could be a specialist as like a short distance like run blocker, because that's kind of always what he's been best at, is burst and pushing guys around. And Cooper Beebe, he might slide into center because I think that's a need for Dallas.
They don't have a center other than Cooper Beebe, so
yeah. So I think he could really make some money there. And then Ben Sinnott, he's of course in a really good situation as well with Washington. And although Ben is somebody I think could have thrived in most systems, honestly, because he's so versatile. But then of course there's tons of undrafted free agents that I can't remember most of them off the top of my head. Phillip Brooks is signed with the Chiefs. Other than that, Plattner, yeah, with the Ravens.
The Ravens.
But beyond that, I can't remember any others off the top of my head. But there are plenty of K-State guys. Duffy signed somewhere. I can't remember where. But
yeah. But congratulations to all of them, and now we can move on to the Batcats, which it's a tougher week for the Batcats. Definitely not the toughest week that we've covered, but we certainly called it last week when we called Fort Worth the House of Horrors for K-State, because boy oh boy, that's still rung true after K-State loses 12-0 in the first game, getting shutouts, and let's not even bother covering the offense other than saying Kalen Culpepper had 2 hits.
Yeah. Brennan Jones walked twice. We left 12 on. We struck out 13 times.
Golly.
We did walk 8 times, which is solid, I guess. But no, it was a really tough day for the offense, obviously. I mean, no runs across. It doesn't get much worse than that. Got on base a lot, but just never converted.
Yeah, which is horrid. But pitching, you have the pitchers.
Yeah, Tyrell, he might be in a position where, similar to Jack Wentworth last year, it may be best to just shut him down for the rest of the year, because I think he's just not healthy enough right now, or at the very least, he still has a ways to go, because he gets credit with the loss as the starter. Only 1 inning, 4 hits, 5 earned runs, and 2 walks and no strikeouts. Only able to record 3 outs, a flyout, 2 ground outs, and 37 pitches. So rough day for him. Cole Weisenbaker pitched an inning, 2 hits, 1 strikeout, didn't give up any runs. So another quality outing for him. Then Andrew Evans came in. He had another rough day. 1 2/3, 8 hits, 6 earned, 2 walks, and a strikeout on 47 pitches. Jacob Frost, we haven't seen as much of him recently, but he was actually fairly decent. 3 1/3, 3 hits, 1 unearned run, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. Did hit a batter through 56 pitches, so fairly decent, all things considered, from Jacob Frost. And then Preston Martinez came in, pitched an inning, had a walk and a strikeout, just 11 pitches, so pretty uneventful for Preston Martinez. The game was all pretty much decided at that point, though. So
yeah, it was just a tough day. Baseball, sometimes this stuff happens. You're gonna have a few days where you get blown up. It happens. Next game was considerably closer in favor of K-State, and I have failed to get that specific game up. It was closer, but I believe we did. I don't believe, I know. I know that we ended up still losing in the game. Give me a moment to pull it up. This is the epitome of professionalism. We ended up losing 7-4. Ended up out-hitting TCU, though, but we also ended up out-erroring TCU by a wide margin, which is a shame because Jack Wentworth, up until his last inning of work, really, this is the only time this year where Jack has been just kind of off, which is weird because his first 2 innings were really, really good. And the 3rd inning, he was starting to show a little bit of signs of cracking, and then the 4th inning happened. But K-State did ended up putting some runs on the board today, and you have the offensive stats for this one.
yeah, Brendan Jones goes 2 for 5 in this one. Nick English went 3 for 5 and scored a run as well. Did leave 3 runners on base, though. Another 0 for day for Brady Day. He's kind of been in a bit of a slump recently. He walked twice, but did not hit. Kalen Culpepper, he went 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a walk in this one. Daniel Rivera, 1 for 2 with a walk and an RBI double. Jaden Parsons, 2 for 3 with a walk. Chuck Ingram, he hit an opposite field home run, went 2 for 4. David Bishop struck out 3 times and did reach on an error, I think, or maybe a fielder's choice, and did score a run at one point. So fairly decent offensive day, honestly, for K-State. They went 12 for 34 as a team, drew 6 walks, only struck out 6 times. They did leave 9 runners on base. Pelletier left 4 on himself, but it was more the defense, really, that particularly a couple plays in particular that really did K-State in. Pelletier had 2 errors on the day as well.
Really uncharacteristic for him. And this was game 1 of a doubleheader, but in terms of pitching stats, there were only 2 pitchers that came in. It was Jack Wentworth with a start, giving up 4 hits, 6 earned, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, 2 wild pitches, 2 hit by pitches. Most of that came in the last part of the game. Blake Dean came in and really calmed things down for K-State afterwards, going 4 2/3, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, only 1 hit by pitch. That's it for pitchers. Like, Blake Dean really did his part to keep K-State in this game and just the bats couldn't claw themselves back into the game. No runs scored after the 5th inning. So again, the 6th spot in the 4th inning is really what screwed K-State out of this game.
Yeah, this was a very winnable game for K-State, but just couldn't quite convert, which we've seen that several times this year, where K-State's been given really several opportunities to win, but haven't been able to convert, particularly on the road.
Yeah. But the second game of the doubleheader did result in a Wildcat victory, a 6-3 Wildcat victory, in fact. So this one was obviously a lot better, including a leadoff home run from Brendan Jones to get the bad taste out of everyone's mouth. Brendan Jones did go up going 1 for 4 with 1 run, 1 hit, 1 RBI, 1 walk, 1 strikeout, and 1 left on base. The extremely rare baseball stuff, the stat sheet. Nick English went 2 for 4 with 3 runs and a walk with 2 strikeouts. Caden Carl came in as a defensive substitution. Brady Day went 1 for 4 with 2 strikeouts and a walk. KC ended up going 2 for 3 with 4 RBI and a walk, including a home run, which was pretty well struck. Rafi ended up taking an unfortunate offer. Daniel Rivera also ended up taking an offer. Jaden Parsons going 1 for 4. Chuck going 0 for 3. And Kyan Lotus going 0 for 3. David Bishop coming in to the last part of the game as a pinch hitter. But all in all, we finally, for the first time in quite some time, got under the 7 mark for left on base.
Yep. Strikeouts were a bit out of control in this one, 13 strikeouts, but left on base numbers finally get under 7, and we finally win a game down in Fort Worth. This is the first time we've ever won against TCU at Lupton Park. So it's nice that we finally did that. Yeah. Kind of embarrassing that was even like something that we had to aspire for. But happens. And pitching was good in this one. Owen Borma, he gets the win. Was just a third of an inning shy of a quality start. Goes 5 2/3, gave up 6 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, and 2 strikeouts. And then Tyson Neighbors came in and pitched the rest of the game. Gets his 4th save of the year, 3 1/3 for him. 2 hits, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, 54 pitches. And that was it. After a very much a staff day on the first game of the series, the last 2 games, K-State only used 4 pitchers, 2 in each of those games. So that was a big role in why K-State was able to take this last game was pitching. Borma looked a lot more like his old self, inducing a lot of soft contact. Only 2 strikeouts in this one for him, but 9 flyouts, 6 groundouts. Then Tyson, he's been really quality these last couple of weeks as well. He did really well.
Yeah. And then K-State got no hit by Nebraska. Anyway, but do you have any final notes before we sign off?
After everything with the Batcats, their RPI is still 36th. So once again, we've had another week that on its face is kind of disastrous, but ultimately had pretty much no effect on K-State's RPI standing. However, a absolutely massive series is coming up against KU at home. This is a KU team that has really been hitting their stride recently. So K-State's kind of been on the downturn. KU has been on the up and up. This is a huge home series for the Batcats. They need to take 2 of 3 in this one. That's not a request.
That's not negotiable.
Yeah, non-negotiable. K-State needs to take 2 of 3 in this weekend home series with KU. If they can do that, I will be a very happy camper. And if they don't do that, I'll be a little bit sad. Those are the stakes, Pete.
High stakes. But thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to contact or follow the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I'm at ACEdward00.
I'm at Connor Baltzor, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store or the supporters link, both in our Twitter and podcast bios. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.